This talk was given by Roshi Martin, guiding teacher of the Endless Path Zendo, a lay Buddhist community in Rochester, New York. Join our practice, in person or online, at endlesspathzendo.org.
So today is Saturday, October 11th, 2025, and today is the first day of our 2025 five-day Jataka Sesshin here at the Vermont Zen Center. Today we'll look at a Jataka tale we haven't looked at for quite a long time. It's the Black Hound Jataka. It's number 469 in the Pali Jataka of 547 such past life stories of the Buddha. Last year at our Jataka Sesshin, we were, to be honest, in a different world. It was a world of great hope. It was October, it was before the election. This year, we are in a different time. We are in a different world. And yet, while that was a time of great hope, this too, there's hope here too, that out of difficulty may yet come real goodness, unobtainable by any other way or any other means. Bodhisattvas are all around us, and they have one aim: to save beings from suffering. They want to help. A quote to keep in mind as the craziness, the upside-downness of our world reveals itself ever more fully, and this is from one of the great Hasidic innovators, really, one of the great mystics and great teachers, Rabbi Israel Baal Shem Tov, the Baal Shem Tov. And this is a quote I just came across recently. I've never seen it before, but it seems very apt, which is, "The bad is a throne for the good." The bad is a throne for the good. Bad things can motivate or help create the conditions for good things. And so today's Jataka. To start, just a little background. Each tale in the Pali Jataka opens with a brief introduction about how the tale came to be told by the Buddha. And each concludes with the Buddha, the traditional narrator for each of the stories in the Pali Jataka. He reveals who the characters of the past life story were at the time of that story's telling or occurring. So that was further back from 2,500 years ago when he was telling the story. It could have been kalpas in the distant past that these people met. One of them was him, and then how their karma played out in the present, the time he's telling the story. So here's the introduction that the Buddha supposedly told to this story and how it came about. Or he may not have told the introduction, but the introduction summarizes how it came about. So one day they say the brethren, and you'll see the language is a bit dated. It's from the only complete translation of the Pali Jataka, which is from the 1890s or so. E.B. Cowell is the translator. One day they say the brethren, as they sat in the Hall of Truth, were talking together. "Sirs," one would say, "the master, ever practicing friendship towards the multitudes of the people, has forsaken an agreeable abode, and lives just for the good of the world. He has attained supreme wisdom, yet of his own accord takes bowl and robe and goes on a journey of 18 leagues or more. For the 5 elders he set a-rolling the wheel of the law. On the 5th day of the half month he recited the Anakalana scriptures and bestowed sainthood upon them all. He went to Uruvela, and to the ascetics with matted hair he showed miracles." In other words, he had it all solved, but he wasn't just sitting around. He went out there, so this continues. "And persuaded them to join the order. At Gaya Sisa, he recited the discourse upon fire." You know, the fire sermon. Everything is burning with the fires of greed, anger, and ignorance. This is not a quaint truth. "And bestowed sainthood upon 1,000 ascetics to Mahakashapa. When he had gone forward 3 miles to meet him, after 3 discourses, he gave the higher orders, all alone. After the new name healed, he went on a journey of 45 leagues and then established in the fruit of the third path, Pukasa, a youth of very good birth. To meet Mahakapina he went forward a space of 2,000 leagues and bestowed sainthood upon him. Alone in the afternoon he went a journey of 30 leagues and established in sainthood that cruel and harsh man, Angulimala. We know about him and the efforts the Buddha made to save a serial murderer, a killer. 30 leagues also he traversed and established Alavaka in the fruit of the first path and saved the prince. In the heaven of the 33 he dwelt 3 months and taught full comprehension of the law, that is the Dharma, to 800 millions of deities. To Brahma's world he went and destroyed the false doctrine of Baka Brahma and bestowed sainthood on 10,000 Brahmas, that is gods, high gods, devas. Every year he goes on pilgrimage in 3 districts, and to such men as are capable of receiving he gives the refuges, the virtues, and the fruits of the different stages. He even acts for the good of Nagas and Garuda birds and the like, that is for non-human intelligences, non-animal intelligences, but highly intelligent non-human beings. He goes for their sake as well. And the like in many ways. In such words, this is all the introduction to this Jataka. In such words, they praise the goodness and worth of the teacher's life for the good of the world. The master, that is the Buddha, then came in and asked what they were talking of as they sat there. They told him, "And no wonder, brethren," he said, "I, who now in perfect wisdom live for the world's good, even in the past lived for the good of the world." So saying, he then told a story of the past. And that's today's Jataka, the story that he tells. The story goes like this. Long ago in a distant past, world age, the Bodhisattva came to life as Shakra, king of the gods. Resplendent and radiant, shining with the glory of the merit he'd acquired in the course of countless lifetimes of noble and selfless effort, he sat at ease on his golden throne. It was peaceful up there in vast, empty space, where countless stars shimmered and distant galaxies glowed. The Buddha-to-be peered down towards the earth, his old home, far below. The sun's light, pouring through space, glinted off shining seas and shone on pearly clouds. Snow-capped mountains gleamed. There were continents of many colors. It was beautiful, yet somehow Shakra felt uneasy. His luminous senses expanded. Now he felt the heat of war, saw the flash of swords, spears, and knives. He heard the bawling of calves sent to the slaughterer, the yelping and whining of starving dogs, the raucous cawing of crows. He heard the cries of children, and he heard voices shouting in anger. He heard the weeping of the hungry, the lonely, the abandoned, the poor. Tears fell from his eyes, showering the earth like meteors. He struck the arm of his throne with a mighty hand. "Something must be done," he exclaimed, and called for his charioteer, the skillful god Matali, who instantly appeared. "There is work," said Shakra, the Bodhisattva, the Buddha, in a past life. "Down there," and he pointed to the earth. "But there's no need for horses or chariot. We'll go ourselves." Shakra rose from his throne and transformed himself into a grim forester with a great bow and a quiver of sharp arrows. Matali became a black hound with tangled fur, crimson eyes, sharp teeth, and a blood-red mouth. Shakra leapt into the blackness of space, whistling for Matali to follow. The hound leapt, and down they plummeted from among the shining stars, landing at last on the earth beside a great walled city. "Who are you, stranger?" called the astonished soldier, looking down at them from his post high up on the wall. "I am a hunter," said Shakra, "and this is my hound." Matali the hound opened its jaws. Smoke curled from deep in its throat. Its jaws opened wider, wider, until the now terrified soldier felt like he was staring into a cauldron of blood and fire. Bar the gates, screamed the soldier. Bar them now. Quickly the city gates were shut and barred tight. But what did Chakra and Matali care about that? They leapt over the city's high wall and its gates shut against them, shocked to see the grim hunter and his terrible hound dropping upon them. The people of the city fled in every direction. The great hound shook itself, then bounded hungrily after them, herding the people like sheep. Men, women, and children fell to the ground and cried aloud in terror. Hold, ordered Chakra, do not move. Stay where you are. My hound is hungry. He must feed. Feed my hound. The king of the city, quaking with fear, cried, Bring food for the hound, bring it now. Quickly, wagons rolled into the market loaded with meat and bread, fruit and grain. The hound gobbled it all in a single gulp. Gone! My hound is hungry. My hound shall feed, cried Chakra, king of the gods, the Bodhisattva, in the form of a grim hunter. More loudly still he cried, Feed my hound! Once again the wagons rolled, and again the ravenous hound swallowed all the food in a single gulp. Then it opened its muzzle, and it howled such a cry of anguish that it seemed to come from the belly of hell. The people fell down and covered their ears in horror. Chakra plucked his great bowstring, making a sound like thunder on a stormy night. Can't you see? He's hungry, cried Chakra. Feed my hound! The king wrung his hands and wept. We have tried, my lord, but he has eaten everything, all we have, all our stores. There's nothing left. Then said Chakra, My hound shall feed on the unrighteous, the greedy, the selfish, the cruel. It shall crush the bones of the hard-hearted and devour those who lie, who kill and steal. And if no righteous ones are found among you, none with compassionate hearts and courageous minds that seek truth, my hound will gorge on your forests, gnaw your mountains, slaughter your birds and beasts, devour the rocks and rivers, until it tears your sun and moon down from the blessed sky. O you people, my hound shall feed. Mercy, cried the terrified king and all his terrified people. Have mercy, please, we beg you, spare us and spare our world. Cease your endless fighting, said Chakra. Use your wealth to feed the poor, care for the sick, homeless, orphaned and old. Teach your children kindness and courage. Respect the earth and its creatures. Care for one another. Learn to be content. Tell the truth. Stop lying. Your self-centered ways have gone unchecked far too long. And know this, only when you have done these things will I finally leash my hound. Until then I may let it roam and let it grab any it sees. I mean it, all of you. Hear my words. And Chakra grew huge and blazed with light. The black hound leapt up too, curling like smoke. Together they rose into the air, higher and higher. Down below, in the streets of the city, men and women looked up in dismay. They reached out their hands to one another and vowed to change their lives, vowed to do as the mighty huntsman had decreed. Back on his golden throne, the Bodhisattva looked down at the earth once more and sighed. He shook his star-crowned head, then nodded at the godly Matala standing nearby. Maybe a good scare is what they needed. Maybe it will do the trick, he said. He wiped his brow with a radiant arm. I hope they get the message this time and finally change their ways. Around them, countless worlds blazed with light, while the endless darkness slumbered like a dog curled by a fire. So that's the story. Interesting little Jataka tale. Somehow makes perfect sense, doesn't it? So we'll take a look at this from the foundation of practice. In this Jataka, the Bodhisattva, the Buddha, in a past life is king of heaven. If you remember the Talking Heads, a wonderful performance movie by Jonathan Demme, Stop Making Sense, a great live performance film, they have a song about heaven. And in that song was a line, everyone is trying to get to the bar, the name of the bar is named Heaven. And hey, the Bodhisattva's not only made it there, man, he runs the place. He's the king of heaven. But heaven, as the Talking Heads also remind us in that song, is a place where nothing ever happens. It's perfectly still, calm and serene, void and clear. And yet Buddhist tradition tells us that as heaven, actually the heavens, there are many, is itself still among the 6 realms of conditioned, unenlightened existence, and so remains bound by karma. Even if it runs on a galactic clock, and each second is many hundreds or thousands of earthly years, it remains subject to impermanence. So even if, like the Bodhisattva, the Buddha in a past life, you get to the highest heaven, you won't be able to stay there. Nonetheless, it's a pretty great place or condition while it lasts. Little side note here, Gary Snyder, now in his 90s, was asked in an interview, what should I do about impermanence? What should I do about impermanence? I thought his answer was pretty great. He answered, enjoy it while you can. It won't last. Heaven-dwelling devas are gods, the radiant ones, the shining ones, the skywalkers. Remember Luke? Yeah. The skywalkers, that's what they're traditionally called, live in a varieties of heavens, some spiritually sublime, some more like sensual wonderlands, some totally formless. But when the good karma that sent those happy beings up or out to whichever heavenly world they've settled on or in is exhausted, as it must eventually be, they fall back. And given the height they fall from, that fall can be devastating. So unless devas continue to work on themselves, they're bound for disappointment, even anguish. Living for millions of earthly years on the merits of past good deeds and practice, they can easily become jaded, forgetting the reality of impermanence, forgetting how tough things can be. They can take their present ease, delight, comfort, freedom as a norm, as a given, as their due. They think heaven is really theirs, and they get lost on paths of entitlement. But when the karmic clock runs out, the shock is overwhelming. Their sweet garlands wither. Their armpits start to smell. Their skin blotches and sags, and their absolutely stunning beauty fades, and they never saw it coming. They forgot what was real, like has-been movie stars or once adored politicians. The loss of love, respect, charisma, attention, and looks is so traumatic, they can plunge right past ordinary human life, down into the deep abysmal hells. Still, among all samsaric, unenlightened realms, being king of the gods is the best, the highest position of all. Samsara is a Sanskrit word and it means wandering. It is the universe we experience with a wandering, self-oriented mind. What universe might we experience with a focused or even empty mind? Still, king of the gods is the pinnacle, which is where the Bodhisattva finds himself in this Jataka, sitting pretty in the unbelievably, enviably glorious condition of being not just a god, but king of all gods. Through eons of deep jhana practice, through the clarity, insight, and compassion of prajna, through countless selfless deeds and works, his store of merit is so great that he has arrived where there is nothing higher, more glorious, radiant, or perfect in all conditioned existence. He is at the top of the heap, the highest tip-top point of all conditioned worlds. Up in his radiant God kingdom, all is vast, perfect, star-studded, glowing, unchanging, eternal, beautiful, calm, happy, wonderful. There are no problems, no deficiencies, no worries, no unfulfilled desires. Peace at last. Or maybe not, or even way up there. Something is missing. The great mystery has not been solved. The mystery each of us has been given by virtue of being born into this life. The mystery that each of us has chosen to come to Sesshin, to face. Who am I? What am I? What is this me, this consciousness I typically take so for granted? What is it that hears sounds, sees colors, thinks thoughts, understands words, tastes food? Where do thoughts, problems, and their solutions come from? Sitting at the top of the world is not where Zen Buddhism would leave us until we fully open the meaning of it all and gain real understanding. How can we be at peace? Buddhism is not a belief system. It emerges from a recognition of how things actually are. So this sense that even heaven is one-sided appears in our own cultural history. If you remember the Odyssey, that stalwart text of Western culture, Homer tells us right at the beginning of the story that the great hero, Odysseus, is essentially in heaven. That's the tale's opening. After surviving countless trials and dangers, he's landed on the island of Calypso, the goddess of the pretty braids. And Calypso, a goddess of great beauty, wants to keep Odysseus there with her forever, eating fantastic meals, having fantastically good sex, loafing around with no problems at all. And she plans to make him immortal. And how does Odysseus feel about this? Pretty good, you'd think, right? He sits by the sea and sobs. He doesn't want to stay there up in heaven. He wants to go home to his aging wife and his growing son. He wants to get back into time and change, difficulties and challenges, into form, and not remain stuck in emptiness at the top of samsara's pole. That's not the hero's cup of tea. And indeed Odysseus does just that. He sets out again alone on the vast ocean, heading back to our challenging and impermanent human realm, the very place we're usually trying so hard to get away from. The heroic take on reality, east and west, shows us that the hero or heroine aims to go all the way, through emptiness to form again. Form is emptiness. Emptiness form. Completion lies right here. The noted Sung Dynasty poet, statesman, calligrapher, and Zen practitioner Su Tong Po wrote, "It is rainy and misty on Mount Lushong. The torrent rises high and wide in the river Xiqiang. If one does not succeed in reaching here, one's regret will persist for all time. When one succeeds in reaching there and returns, the world is without peculiarity, just as it is. It is rainy and misty on Mount Lushong. The torrent rises high and wide in the river Xiqiang." So, it is rainy and misty on Mount Lushong. The torrent rises high and wide in the river Xiqiang. If one does not succeed in reaching there, one's regret will persist for all time. When one succeeds in reaching there and returns, the world is without peculiarity, just as it is. It's rainy and misty on Mount Lushong. The torrent rises high and wide in the river Xiqiang. The Bodhisattva, the Buddha in a past life, at the start of our Black Hound Jataka, is sitting pretty up in a lofty heaven. But, like Odysseus, he finds that something's off about this situation. Like food preserved in the fridge too long. maybe I've got it made, but is that really the point? The Buddha to be the king of the gods, the Bodhisattva, doesn't think so. Despite what advertising may try to sell us about Zen, fundamentally, Zen is not about being Zened out, calm, peaceful, chilled. What Zen Buddhism offers is a practical way to plunge into the heart of the mystery, the deep, constant challenge of who am I really? And from that vastly opening potential, walk the way of the Bodhisattva, the maturing or growing up being who aspires to truth and the welfare of all living things. Vimalakirti, the greatly enlightened layman of the Buddha's time, lying on his sickbed of skillful means, said, if others are sick, I'm sick too. Only when all are well will I too be well. There is no separate way out. Even if a bodhisattva on the way to Buddhahood should make it to the highest heaven, then if anyone, any being, anywhere, still suffers the sickness of greed, anger, and delusion, the bodhisattva cannot truly be well. Sticking to a personal, quiet, peaceful, empty, blissed out place is not the true way. For the maturing bodhisattva, there is work to be done, always work to be done. Case 25 of the Blue Cliff Record says the hermit Renge Ho took up his staff before an assembly and said, when the old worthies reached here, why didn't they stay? Why didn't they stay? He himself answered, it has no power for the way. It has no power for the way. In case 46 of the Gateless Barrier, Master Shishuang, Sekiso in Japanese, said, how do you step from the top of a 100-foot pole? Which is followed by a little poem by Changsha, I believe. Another eminent master of former times said, you who sit on the top of a 100-foot pole, although you have entered the way, it is not yet genuine. Take a step from the top of the pole, and the worlds of the 10 directions will be your total body. And the worlds of the 10 directions will be your total body. The Bodhisattva, who will one day be the Buddha Shakyamuni, is sitting at ease at the top of the pole, up in a shimmering, shining, radiant, star-studded, quiet, peaceful, vast, empty space. But hearing the cries of the world, he won't stay there. He takes a step off the top of the pole. Until wisdom is given compassionate form, the Bodhisattva remains incomplete. It's said that even Shakyamuni, speaking of such perfect incompleteness, is only halfway there. An inscription on a plaque at a Chinese monastery built in the 1700s says, carrying wood and transporting water establishes Buddhism. This is reminiscent of Layman Pong's famous verse about my miraculous powers carrying firewood, chopping firewood, carrying water. Carrying wood and transporting water establishes Buddhism. They didn't say just sitting. They said carrying wood and transporting water. But, in other words, the Dharma is actualized by the ordinary things we actually do. But for a bodhisattva who's a god, such ordinariness will, to earthly eyes, kind of look rather remarkable. So it's said that advanced bodhisattvas can take any form to help free deluded beings from self-caused sufferings. Such bodhisattva mahasattvas, that is, bodhisattva, great bodhisattvas, great beings, can appear in wrathful forms, animal forms, seductive forms, as a Japanese Buddhist tradition, which story tradition includes a tale of Samantabhadra, bodhisattva of compassionate action, taking the form of a courtesan to liberate beings. Humble forms, deluded, crazed, maimed, sick, like Vimalakirti, godlike, as well as trees, bugs, rivers, stars, in short, whatever's needed to fulfill their selfless vows. This is their bodhisattvic play, their upaya, or skillful means. It's a bodhisattva's art form. Zen tradition says that for a bodhisattva, such acts are not forced or self-conscious, but are like reaching back for a pillow in the night, natural, unself-conscious, which sounds kind of lofty, but we too do remarkable things with no more effort than reaching back for a pillow in the night. We think thoughts, we see colors, we hear sounds, we laugh when happy, cry when sad, grow angry at injustice, turn an impossible burger into muscle, thought, and bone. Still, compassionate actions don't necessarily have to look like the action of a Boy Scout or Girl Scout helping an old woman across the street. Compassion can be a wily beast, a black hound, hard to track down, to grasp, even to get in our sights. It might not look like compassion at all. But take heed, the actions of a bodhisattva are not going to be cruel, greedy, or harmful. There's no excuse for papering over self-centered behaviors or hurtful actions and claiming bodhisattvic immunity. If someone says, "Oh, I was just trying to be a bodhisattva," run! Of course, in more ordinary terms, parents know well that compassion can take many forms. If your child's about to run into the street or put their hand on a hot stove, yelling, screaming, throwing things are all legitimate expressions of love. You do what you have to do. Scaring, even terrifying a child at such times can be life-saving. But if anyone is simply causing harm, creating trauma, illness, and death, or fomenting grave injustice, please, whatever claims they may make about the good they are doing, they're not bodhisattvas, and their actions most definitely not skillful means. In Buddhism, faith does not require us to ignore critical thinking and common sense. In the Jataka of the Bodhisattva, king of the gods, and his black hound, the future Buddha, having accumulated this immense store of merit through countless lifetimes of selfless practice, sees the difficulties down here on his old home, this old spinning earth, and seeing the dangers that human beings are blindly creating for themselves, is drawn to do something about it. So he takes off his starry crown, whistles up his attendant, and together they leap, not higher, away from the disturbance, but down, into time and change, into the very problem itself. He will do what he can to end this cycle of bad karma we all know too well. The Buddha, about to be sitting under the Bodhi tree, far in the future of this Jataka, on the cusp of his great enlightenment, did not look up to the heavens and call for aid when challenged by Mara. Instead, he reached down and touched the earth, the ground, and let the humble earth serve as witness to his worthiness. For it is here that the work is done. The essence of Zen is actualization of the ancient way of the Bodhisattva. To quote Yamada Mumen Roshi at the conclusion of a talk he gave on the 10th and final oxherding picture, the one of entering the market with helping hands. This is from his book, Lectures on the 10 Oxherding Pictures, a series of talks that Yamada Mumen Roshi gave back in 1953 to a group of new monks at Shofukuji in Kyoto, where he was then abbot. And he says this: "You set out in search of the ox, spotted the tracks and caught sight of the ox. Then you caught the ox, tamed and trained the ox, pushed yourself to the limit in discipline. But the object of all this effort must be to reach this final state of consciousness. When you have reached that highest awakened state where the world just as it is the pure land, where you yourself, just as you are, are the Buddha, then you must throw away the satori, and for the sake of those suffering and distress, those in suffering and distress, descend to the bottom of society, to the farthest corner of society, and awaken everyone else to this pure land as well. You must give this light of Buddha to everyone else too. This is the ultimate purpose of the 10 Oxherding pictures. With this in mind, I ask you to dedicate and exert yourselves to the utmost. Even as King of the Gods, free of all personal sorrow, the Bodhisattva, moved by his vows, can't just sit at peace at the top of the pole. He gets off his throne, puts on a rough demeanor, and sets out to embody the way. By the way, Blake, one of my personal heroes, in his epic poem Milton, shows the same impulse as the Bodhisattva and as Odysseus. For he writes in that poem that the great poet John Milton, after death, was in heaven. But he was unhappy. He was so unhappy in heaven that he decided to return to earth to take form as William Blake, actually to enter Blake's foot like a falling star, so he could get back to work and continue to help make things right. Unhappy, though in heaven. The Bodhisattvic impulse. Buddhism doesn't make us believe in something, it's describing something that everyone already knows in every culture, deep down. It's a statement of fact. This selfless aspiration is already the core of who we are, whether we're yet conscious of it or not. Again, Buddhism, especially Zen Buddhism, is not a belief system, something we need to believe in. It is a practice, and out of that practice, both faith and belief develop based on actual, evolving personal experience of what's already our own nature, just as we are. Zen is a way of getting us back in touch with who we already are. The Bodhisattva King of the Gods reveals this essential, compassionate, selfless, non-dual nature when he leaps back down to earth, relinquishing his personally hard-won, peaceful, vastly empty, heavenly position. Calling his action heroic doesn't do it justice. He's not trying to be kind, courageous, or selfless. When we get a splinter on our foot, we don't do a lot of heavy thinking about whether to remove it or not. His compassion is the expression of non-dual prajna wisdom. But what is this greatly ennobling, empowering wisdom? As Rinzai, after experiencing deep enlightenment, he proclaimed that his teacher, Wangpo's Buddhism, that there was not much to it. There's not much to Wangpo's Buddhism. How little was there? The wise and accomplished King of the Gods starts off in our story happy, free of suffering, at peace, but then without thoughts of should I or shouldn't I, mirroring what he sees before him, without sticking himself between. He takes the form that the conditions themselves call forth. The essence of truly skillful action paradoxically arises out of not being there. Not only human beings can access this, perhaps it underlies the secrets of how an octopus can instantly transform itself to perfectly match its environment. Wu Men tells us a god mask, a devil mask. The failure is wonderful indeed. What is this wonderful failure he so praises? In short, the Bodhisattva's action is not something self-consciously done for others. It's not an elegantly refined version of here I am, peaceful and all, and the baby is crying, or the neighbor needs a hand changing that flat tire, or whatever, but as I've made vows, I guess I'll have to attend to it. That's nice. Sure. What we see in this Jataka is an unforced, spontaneous expression of innate wholeness. If the Bodhisattva doesn't act, he stands against the wholeness that is already his and our nature. Relationships, familial, communal, social, planetary responsibilities are opportunities, ways to try and try again, to mature and get closer to the selfless insight and skill that is already ours. The paradox, of course, remains. It is ours, but to know it and to use it, we must work at it, which is why we're here now in this session. The world's need, our own need, called forth this session and the work we will do in it. An experience of vast, calm, quiet emptiness, wonderful as it is only half the story. For the maturing Bodhisattva, there remains the endless perfecting, which implies failing and trying again and again, of skillfully embodying, indeed, being the way. The Black Hound Jataka shows the Bodhisattva actualizing the paramita of skillful means, or upaya, coming forward to help others who, while fundamentally as free as he, simply don't know it, and so act self-centeredly, unskillfully, creating terrible harm for themselves and others. We should all be as lucky as the citizens of that city who, scared out of their wits by the terrifying apparition of a demonic hunter and his ravening hound, become able not just to think, one day I'll change. Sure. One day I'll get down to it. Yeah. Maybe when I retire. But I will do it now. The path begins with a sense of limitation, which in turn gives rise to a felt need for change, a need to grow and leave self-centered, self-limiting, self-destructive habits of body and mind behind. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with that first decisive or stumbling or hesitant step and continues endlessly from there. But where are we going? Where does it lead? How far off is our destination? Zen Master Dogen writes, famously, that is for Zen students, when habitual, unconscious self-centeredness falls away, the world of 10,000 unique things, trees, stars, people, dust, ants, cell phone towers, steps in and realizes itself as the self. This entrance onto the path of less self-centered, even selfless practice continues endlessly. When the wise little fox in the Grimm's Brothers fairy tale of the golden bird, maybe you know that story, or at least probably I've mentioned it a bunch of times here, advises the naive and good-hearted hero, he says, when you get there, don't put the golden sword in the golden scabbard. Put it in the plain old leather one. Don't try to make them match up. That's how you'll get caught. He's presenting the essence of prajna. Form is only emptiness. Emptiness only form, just as it is right now. Perhaps like fairy tales themselves, this insight goes back to the Paleolithic, when Dogen, in awe, called Zhao Chu the ancient Buddha. He was evoking the timeless depths of our own nature. This is beyond Zen, beyond Buddhism itself. This is very high praise indeed. The ancient Buddha. The ancient Buddha. Buddhist tradition says that here on planet Earth, a saha, or bearable world, spiritual practice is encouraged by the very challenges and difficulties we face here. Sutras add that Buddhas on this world, and of course there have been more Buddhas than just Shakyamuni, or even the past 7 Buddhas. No one really knows how far back it goes. Sutras add that Buddhas on this world are going to need strong words and sometimes even blows to skillfully and compassionately motivate the stubborn, willful beings of planet Earth to move away from danger. Just like the Bodhisattva in this Jataka. Then again, we have to be careful. A Zen style can easily become fox Zen, imitative, false, and sly, not the real thing. Sometimes a gentle touch or a kind word might work better. So the story doesn't mean we should now go out like the chakra king of the gods and do painful things to others in order to help them move along. Sometimes a gentle word or a kind word, a gentle touch or a kind word might work better. Great teachers like the Buddha and Jiaoshu didn't rely on harsh words or blows. If a black hound is needed, okay, well and good. But if it's a cup of water or a helping hand, let's be clear and wise enough to offer those. Skillful means is endlessly creative, not habitual. In the 10th and final 12th century Zen Oxfording pictures entering the market with helping hands, the Bodhisattva doesn't look heroic, fearsome, or godly. He's a wandering monk, Hotai by name. A big, stoop-shouldered, bare-chested, round-bellied man with long droopy ears, a goofy grin, flapping robe, and a bag of toys and treats to share with others. Though muddied and dust-covered, how broadly he grins. Without recourse to mystic powers, withered trees he swiftly brings to bloom. And who is Hotai? Tradition says that he's a skillful form, just like in our Jataka, a skillful form, taken by the future Buddha Maitreya, the Buddha to be, who right now is seated up in the Tushita heavens, looking down at earth, seeing all our problems, contemplating the skillful means he'll need to save living beings. Once he's back down here with us, some 5,670,000,000,000 years from now, snap of a finger in endless time. Why does the great Bodhisattva Maitreya do it? For that matter, why did Bodhidharma come from the West, despite the dangerous, even life-threatening ocean crossing it required? Further back in history, why did the Buddha bother to get up from under the Bodhi tree when he already had the whole deal settled? And really why? In this Jataka, did the Buddha, a Bodhisattva on the path, willingly go through all the difficulty, take on the weird form, speak the tough words that could so easily have aroused misunderstanding, opposition, even revolt? Maybe those frightened people will just be better armed next time he pays them a visit, better prepared to face him and fight. Maybe his selfless efforts will go sadly awry. I mean, many science fiction plots show that, right? The visitor comes from another world, offers peace or deals to help set things right, and what happens? We get our backs up, call out the militia, and it all goes south. Is there ever a guarantee that skillfulness will work, that efforts to do good will meet with success? And yet, we must try, unskilled as we are. And trying really means failing, falling, and getting back up and trying again. As the Jatakas show, this is the essence of the way. If it wasn't, wouldn't there just be 10 Jatakas? One for each paramita. The Buddha does it, he perfects it, that's one, bing. That's two, bing. 10, I'm done. But no, there are thousands, not just the 540, there are thousands of Jatakas. Why? Why didn't the Buddha just get it? And he was the Buddha. Why don't we just get it? Why does it take all we can give to it in this life and endless lives yet to come? The essence of the Jataka seems to be that even the Buddha, skilled and dedicated as he was, had to try and fail and try again. Because our nature is so rich so full of possibility and potential for both good and for error. And it's only by persisting that the way is perfected. To again quote Wu Men, Muman, even further out of actual meaning and context from what he said, the failure is wonderful indeed. The way is really endless. Endless depths, endless awakenings, endless richness, endless skillfulness. The word love is little used in Buddhism and hardly mentioned in Zen. But if you lean in close enough, you'll eventually soundlessly hear it. Why else would a bodhisattva go to all that trouble? Blake hit the nail on the head when he wrote, eternity is in love with the productions of time. Avalokiteshvara, the thousand-armed bodhisattva of compassion, is the active form of totally immense, totally selfless, non-dual love. Such love is not mere sentiment. Each of the bodhisattva's 1,000 arms ends in a hand with an open eye of awakened, transcendental, non-dual wisdom in the palm. Without that eye, who knows what 1,000 arms, what damage 1,000 arms might do. As we know, what's that saying? The path of hell is paved with good intentions. And the bodhisattva has 11 heads as well. How'd that happen? So here's the story. You remember it, I think. The bodhisattva, world ages ago, vowed to liberate all beings from the hells, empty the hells. So for endless eons, he labors to get all the beings that are in the hells out of the hells. And he does it. He does it. He empties all the hells. Not one being, not even the demons are left in the hells. He's freed them all. And bam! Within 60 seconds, within a minute, they're all refilled. The hells filled up again. His head shattered into 11 heads so he could look in any direction to see any being was suffering. His 2 arms shattered into 1,000 arms so he could reach into any realm and do something to help beings suffering there. You see, out of failure, out of trying and failing, out of the despair of that, came even greater commitment and greater skill. Leonard Cohen wrote, "Now I greet you from the other side of sorrow and despair, with a love so vast and shattered, it will reach you everywhere." It's like the voice of the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara telling this story in 2 lines. Shakra, king of the gods, looks down, sees the earthly mess, takes off his crown, whistles up his hound, black as empty space, black as the middle of the night, in which nothing can be separated out. And he leaps, and that's how he does it. Don't we learn by doing? We learn Zazen by doing Zazen. We learn Zen practice by doing Zen practice. We learn to make omelets by turning on the burner and cracking eggs. As this Jataka shows, this is how it's supposed to be. We must take forms, or we must take form. Sitting at the top of the pole, the top of the mountain, top of the world, top of the samsaric universe is only halfway there. We can't stay forever in that calm, empty, comfortable place we find in sitting facing the wall, or try to find in sitting facing the wall. If we cling to it and try to carry it with us, we run the risk of separating from what actually is right now, closing our eyes in the hands and letting our good intentions once again run amok. The challenge is to let go of even that and come forward into whatever is right before us. This breath, this count, this koan, full attention right here, returning again and again to the practice, we experience the world afresh, know it intimately, no longer out there, but woven into our very breath, our flesh, our bones. The call of a bird, the rumble of traffic, the wind in the trees are us, as they have always truly been. Silent zazen and compassionately active life imply each other, like the two wings that propel a bird through the air, the two legs that carry us on the longest journeys. Skillful is as skillful does, and we each have a long way to go. Even when our practice becomes nearly heavenly. The good news is that we now have 4 days to work at it. Thank goodness, is what I say. Indeed, let us, hands palm to palm, really thank goodness and get to work.